Season 2 for Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 is now live, and along with the Season 2 update, we got ourselves Ashika Island, which is the new Resurgence map for Warzone 2, and this is, of course, is the first Resurgence map we're getting in Warzone 2 as well, and this is one thing that I think was actually missing at the launch of Warzone 2, because since we went through multiple years of the first Warzone, and we got ourselves Rebirth Island, which introduced the Resurgence game mode and made it really popular, and then eventually Fortune's Keep came out, which was also another Resurgence map we saw back in the original Warzone, and of course since the launch of Warzone 2, things have not really looked good for the game, and even the same can be said for Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer as well, but that is not going to be my focus in today's video as much as I want to rant about the multiplayer that we see in the current state for Modern Warfare 2. It is just not worth it right now. Basically, I would be saying the same things that every other content creator is saying out there, so I might as well just hold my breath at the moment and just focus on Ashika Island, because since Season 2 came out, my friends and I have been playing a lot of Resurgence lately for Warzone 2, and keep in mind, I'm somebody who doesn't really play Warzone all that much. I am mostly a multiplayer person. It is my go-to mode. I've been playing it for years, over 10 plus years I've been playing Call of Duty's multiplayer, so of course it's going to be a huge focus of mine, and so Warzone is something that I don't really play unless it's with my friends. And so since we have this new season, since now we can rank up to level 450 and XP actually is meaningful, my friends and I started off playing Ashika Island, and we have just been having a blast playing it. I actually feel like I'm winning my gunfights. We're winning pretty consistently actually, or at least placing really high each match, and that's saying something, because as somebody who isn't really that good at Warzone, especially within the first Warzone, I was pretty atrocious at it, and part of it was because I didn't really play it all that much, and I feel like I was going up against the sweatiest players of all time. I don't feel like that's the case right now with Ashika Island, and maybe because it's a new experience, everybody's trying to get used to it, which is a little odd because I find the map pretty easy to actually navigate through, which is kind of interesting, and maybe that's part of the reason why I'm winning my gunfights. I actually know how to control my positioning a little bit better than other people. I don't really know why that's the case, because I've never played on the map like everybody else has, and so that could be the reason why I'm having such a good time playing it right now. And of course I am playing with friends. It's not like I'm like partying up with random people and I have to carry them every single match, so of course, you know, it does make the experience a little bit easier for me. Also, since it is of course Resurgence game mode, it is going to be a lot more fast-paced than Al Mazrab, and that is the one thing that I would say is what's really holding together Warzone 2 right now is this Resurgence game mode. And you look back at the first Warzone did of course maintain a pretty good popularity even when we just had Verdansk, but once Rebirth Island came out and we had that Resurgence game mode, there was like this huge shift or influx of players who just like only played Rebirth Island on that Resurgence game mode, and because it really captured what Call of Duty is, that fast-paced action you get every single match, and you can pretty much guarantee a fast-paced action match every time you get into a Resurgence game mode, especially here within the Ashika Island. So it really does hold Warzone 2 together right now, and it's definitely going to bring in a lot more of influx of players back into the game, so people are going to be into it more, and it's probably going to be a little bit more competitive as time goes on, so just be aware of that. But also, another thing about Ashika Island is you can swim on the outskirts of the map. This is something that you couldn't do on Rebirth Island within the first Warzone because we didn't have the swimming mechanic in the game, and so now that we can swim in this game, you can definitely do some interesting maneuvers trying to get around enemy players now that we can swim. However, I will say this though, I think it's pretty much almost a death sentence if you are swimming on the outskirts of the map on Ashika Island, because there's a pretty good chance that the final circle may actually end up being on the edge of the map, and it seems like that does happen pretty frequently from the time playing it that I have so far, and so I really don't recommend staying in the water because there isn't cover out there, and you can't use your primary weapon unless you're on the surface of the water where everybody can see you just being a sitting duck. So that's also another thing. However, I will say this though, there is a portion of the map where you can go inside a tunnel, and in there, of course, there is water that you can swim through, which I think can play some very interesting gunfights. I honestly have not had too many gunfights in this tunnel area. It seems like a lot of people try to avoid it, which I don't really know why, and so maybe this is something you guys have experienced as well. Not too many people are exploring this tunnel area, and so there's a good chance you could get good loot there because there's always seems to be loot down there no matter what. It's a pretty big space, and the great thing about this tunnel area, it goes underneath the map, and you can really choose which parts of the map you can actually get above on the surface, especially once the circle starts closing in tighter and you actually have to start flanking enemy players and start trying to be a little bit more strategic. So that is probably like one of my favorite spots on the map. Another spot on the map I really like is the residential area. This is an area that I typically drop in at the start of the match, and I don't know why I really like the residential area. There really isn't too many buildings to actually explore, and they're only like 2-story buildings, so they're pretty small and you can pretty much parkour on top of them pretty easily as well. And I do find that to be pretty useful, especially if there is another squad who's trying to loot up and their players are trying to like come back into the match because they died earlier or something like that. So that's something you definitely have to watch out for. But the residential area, I find it pretty easy to navigate through just because there really isn't that many buildings. They're only like 2 stories tall, so it's really easy to navigate once you go inside the building for the first time. And so I think that's why I kind of lean towards the residential area at the start of the match compared to like any other location we have on Ashika Island. In this last update, they added a cool feature called Restore Honor, where when you or your teammate die, you are going to drop a dog tag that either a teammate can pick it up, or even you can pick up your own dog tag as well if you resurge back into the match. And once you pick up the dog tag, you are rewarded with $1,000 in cash, a 50-meter loot ping, and a normal 300-meter UAV ping. And so the 50-meter loot ping is pretty equivalent to the supply box UAV we saw within the first Warzone. And this is something that I find really useful at the start of a match, especially if you're playing Ashika Island, because I believe this is also available in Al Mazrah as well. But on Ashika Island, this is pretty dang important because it's very fast paced. You could be landing at a very hot location where there are multiple squads just battling it out. There's just constant gunfire, and there is just like no time to think. You got to make every decision like the best decision possible. And if you happen to take out enemies who just took out your teammates, and you're like one of the last people alive, and you're like waiting for that resurgence countdown timer to go down so you guys can still stay in the match, grabbing these dog tags can be extremely useful because your teammates will be able to see where these loot pings are at. And so the loot ping can be very beneficial as soon as you resurge, because you don't want to come in with only a pistol. You want to try and find like a primary weapon as soon as possible, especially something that's fully automatic would be very beneficial. So I find this to be a really good feature, especially on Ashika Island, and it could also be useful on Al Mazrah as well. I believe it is on Al Mazrah. I actually have not played Al Mazrah yet since the update, so I'll have to see how it actually plays with all this new gameplay features and updates that we see within Season 2. But I guess later on the season, there's supposed to be new events. One's called Search and Seizure, where you have to fetch a stolen vehicle that's protected by AI, and then you have to extract that vehicle. And then there's another one called Data Heist, which is also coming out later in the season, where you have to find like these multiple laptops and download this intel, and then while it's downloading, you have to take out like waves of AI or something like that, and then you get rewarded with UAVs and advanced UAVs, which I guess is pretty nice. So we'll have to see how those eventually play out when they get added to the game later on. But there also seems to be some positive gameplay changes as well we see within this update, and I think the majority of Warzone players are happy with these changes because they are more aligned with what we had within the first Warzone, which makes sense and should be the case because the first Warzone was extremely popular, and there's a reason why it was so popular. So it doesn't really make sense to change things that aren't broken and not just change it for the sake of change. One thing that's really different about Warzone 2 compared to its predecessor is that there was backpacks in this game. Well, there's no more medium or large backpacks that you can acquire in Warzone anymore, which I didn't realize at first. Once I was playing Ashika Island, I'm like, are there no backpacks you can pick up on here? Because my inventory will get full pretty quickly, honestly. And I would always be like, man, I could really use some more room here. But I understand why they removed them. Just being able to carry like multiple self revives or carrying multiple tactical equipment, armor plates. I mean, you can still kind of do that because there is still like the standard backpack we have, but you can't carry more things anymore within Warzone Warzone. Everybody has the same size backpack, which kind of gives it more of an even playing ground whenever you come across loot and how much you can actually carry, which I guess at the end of the day does actually make sense. Also, there's no more 3-plate vests that you have to find and pick up. Everybody has one by default, which is a good thing. Another thing, which I can't believe they didn't do this at launch, is editing perk packages. First of all, the idea of perk packages I think are stupid, but now we can actually edit them and have the perks we want in each class rather than the default ones that we have to pick between each from. So I am happy they added that. That should just not have been the case like at launch. Like that should not have been a problem at all in general. I don't know what they're trying to do in the perk area. It's just super weird at this point. Also, there's no AI in Ashika Island. I know they reduced the amount of AI we see within Al Mazrah, but you can still come across them because there are strongholds. But I haven't come across any in Ashika Island. I'm not sure if there is any AI on Ashika Island. I think they are supposed to add this new like AI type boss that's a lot harder to take out because of like how fast it moves and it can melee you to death or something like that. They're going to add that later in the season. We'll have to see how that actually turns out. But also, the Gulag is 1v1 in Al Mazrah, or just in general. I mean, of course, right now with Ashika Island, we only have the Resurgence mode. We don't have Battle Royale within Ashika Island, so we don't know what the Gulag would look like on that map. But still, Gulag's a 1v1, which I think is a positive change. Definitely did not need to be 2v2. And the last thing that was added with this update that I want to bring up in this video, and this is something that I think really does bring a lot of dedicated players back to playing this game, and that is combat records, because the people who take Call of Duty seriously like looking at their stats. They like having combat records. They like seeing how many wins they have, what their KD ratio is, like how many kills total they have, what is their best weapon that they use, their highest KD weapon that they use, or the gun that they have the most kills with, the most equipment that they use, you know, all that stuff. You know, dedicated Call of Duty players love having combat records, and having it in Warzone definitely needs to be a thing, and we actually have it this time. Unfortunately, everything you did before Season 2 doesn't matter. All those wins you got, even if you got a nuke in Warzone, none of that stuff is going to be tracked anywhere. So anything after Season 2 is being tracked, which I am okay with, honestly, just because for me at a personal level, I didn't play Warzone 2 all that often when it first came out. I really wasn't that interested in it. I mostly just played DMZ, and I had a lot of fun with that. But now that I'm having a lot more fun with Warzone 2, I'm glad that we have combat records and my stats are being tracked right now. So yeah, we'll have to see how things go from here on out with Warzone 2. There's definitely been a lot of positive things going on within Warzone 2 since Season 2 came out, and I do expect Warzone 2 to get a lot better, but it's just kind of unfortunate that Season 2 was only focused on Warzone, right? Season 2 only focused on updating Warzone and did not have really any contribution to multiplayer whatsoever. And that sucks. That honestly really sucks that we don't see a lot of support going on with the multiplayer side of things. I could have made a video a while ago before Season 2 came out talking about the roadmap and how there's just not much support going on with multiplayer. But like I said at the beginning of this video, I would just be repeating what other content creators have been saying. And I just felt like the video would have just been kind of a waste and really no sense in actually making it. But I really wanted to talk about Ashika Island because this is something that I have been enjoying a lot recently. I've barely put in any time into multiplayer. All my time spent within Season 2 so far has been on Ashika Island, and I love this map. It's a lot of fun, and I'm going to continue playing it, and I'll see what other content I can come up with you guys in regards to this map. But in terms of future videos, I'm probably going to be talking about DMZ because you can play DMZ on the new Ashika Island map, and of course we do see the infected game mode returning to multiplayer, and I played a little bit of that, so that'll be interesting to cover as well. So those are a couple things you can expect here in the near future on the channel. I'm going to try and post more videos frequently just because we do have a new season out, and I actually have a reason to play Call of Duty right now where I didn't in the last couple months. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this long video. If you stuck all the way through, please leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Do not forget to follow me on Twitter to stay up to date with me outside of YouTube, and of course follow me over on Twitch where I do live stream occasionally. And with that being said, I shall catch you guys later.